Hello, my name's John. This is my Primaris Scale Attack Bike conversion, and you're watching Wargames, Models, and Other Hobbies. Hello and welcome back to another video. Today is going to be a compilation video of when I did this little project some time ago. This is my Primaris Scale Attack Bike. It was made from an ATV kit and an Outrider kit. I'll say from the very beginning, it's not the cheapest project. You sacrifice nearly a whole ATV just for the sidecar. But I prefer the attack bike profile and the look to the ATV, so that's what I wanted to go for. I'm sure there's other ways you could go about making the sidecar. I'd love to hear people's suggestions in the comments, whether it's 3D printing or other kits that you could use. But for now, let's get on with the video. Today I'm going to be starting a conversion of a Space Marine attack bike. This model has now been retired, and the conversion that I'm going to do is to create a Primaris Scale Attack Bike. What I'm going to use for this are parts from the Primaris Invader ATV and also some Outriders. So I've already actually started a few bits of this conversion. I've started modelling the bike section out of the Outrider. That's what I'm going to concentrate on in today's video. I'm going to finish this off, sort the rider out and that kind of thing. And in the second part, I'm going to use parts of the ATV to create the sidecar that I'm going to mount the heavy weapon on. So what I want to do with the rider and the bike section of the attack bike is position the rider in a similar way to what we have on the original one. So both hands holding the handlebars. The Outriders themselves, each of them are holding a weapon in one of their hands. So what I'm actually going to use are the hands from the ATV to be holding both handles on the handlebar. So let's have a look at the parts that I've got ready to go. So I have a body to start using. That's from the Outriders. I then have the ATV handlebars. I also have two sets of handlebars from the Outriders. So you'll notice that the handlebars from the ATV and the Outriders are a different size. So what I'm going to do is clip the hands off the ATV ones and mount them onto the other ones. So let's get started. So first things first, I'm going to fit the body in place and put the other side of the bike in position. So because I'm using different component parts from different Outrider bikes, what I'm going to need to do, which I've started doing, is trim off the pegs. So I'm going to be gluing it in place without those pegs. This will allow me a little bit of movement when I start putting bits together. Okay. Right, let's hold that for a second. And the sun's coming out. So let's tidy up a little bit of this. Okay, so other things that I've done to this Outrider bike, I've clipped off the pegs off the wheels because I want it standing straighter rather than slightly tilted. So what I now need to do is work out the handlebar position with the different arms. So I think I'm going to just use the arms from the ATV. So what I'm going to need to do is clip off the pegs from the Space Marine, and then I'm going to clip off the hands from the ATV handlebars and mount them onto one of these sets here. So now I have that clipped. I'm going to tidy it up slightly and get rid of a mould line. And what I will do is I'm going to put this into position. That is a lot of sun now. Put this into position on the bike itself, which I've done in a stupid order. I should have put the handlebars on before I put the fairing on. I'm sure some people have noticed that. So let's separate the fairing slightly. Right, so there we go. Right, there we go. Let's push that back in place. So, please remember to put your handlebars on before putting all of the outside fairing and everything on. So I will need to do a little bit of filling in that before I start doing the painting section anyway. Right, let's get one of these ATV arms glued up with the handlebar hand. And let me get the other one off the kit to do the same. Okay, so I'm hoping that when I position these on the body, they're going to meet the handlebar perfectly. I might need to move the body a little bit to make that work, but we shall see. So we'll do a dry fit first. Okay. So it's almost there. I just need to shave a little bit of material. Actually, do I? Let's have a look at this one. I think putting glue on the arms and then the handlebar sections, glue it up. Any gaps I'll fill later on. So let me just tidy off the last of that peg. So if I'd thought about it a little bit more, I would have double checked and trimmed, oops, so I wouldn't have to worry too much about filling later on, but that's okay. So I'm probably going to have to do some filling under the shoulder pads. Well, that has come straight off, so I need to be a bit more patient and hold it in place. Okay. We put a little bit more glue. Okay, so there's the arms in position. So rather than, just grab one of the other ones, rather than the Space Marine holding only one handlebar, this one's now holding both of them. Another key difference, this one doesn't have the Indomitus Crusade, I think it's the Indomitus Crusade, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but that marking that all of the initial Primaris Marines had. So I'm going to need to get a backpack from the bike kit. Just tidy up the mould lines a little bit. I have to say, I don't mind too much about mould lines, as long as they're hidden, it's okay. Right, and because this is a push fit one, I'm not going to worry about gluing it, just in case I do need to remove it. We will push it into place. So these arms are going to take a little bit of time. To secure in the right place. That one's going to need a bit more glue, I think, in a minute. Let me re-glue that arm. That's better. Okay, and let's get a head. I don't actually mind which one I get. They're all, I want to get helmeted ones, so they're all the same heads from that kit. And what I'm going to do is just take the bottom peg off so I can position it where I want it to be. A little blob of glue, and then pop the head in. And there we go. So there we have the Outrider bike section completed. So holding two handlebars rather than one. And what I'm going to have a think about before the next video is what I want the sidecar to look like. So in the original, it's quite an open sidecar. We've got the wheel on the side. Obviously, the heavy weapon and the gunner. I already know from the ATV I'm going to use the front section of it, where originally it was the driver, but that's now going to be the gunner. And it's going to position somewhere like that. But I'm going to have to trim a lot of this off, all of the back and sections from the side. And welcome to part 2 of this conversion project. In the first video, I made the bike section of the attack bike, converted the rider so they were holding both the handlebars rather than just one. Between That video and this one, I've been doing a little bit of planning. I also cut a section of the ATV in half. Once I'd cut it in half, I tidied up a few of the edges, so I now have the basic form for the sidecar. What I've also got here is the ATV driver body, as well as the gunner's arms, just so I can see exactly how these sit in. And you can see it's not going to take much conversion to sort out that weapon. But in this video, what I'm going to be doing is sorting out the wheel for the sidecar and possibly working out how it's going to attach to the bike itself. So I've had a few options with the wheel. I can either, using parts from the ATV, use a wheel with a full mudguard, which I think is the front wheel of the ATV. Alternatively, I can use the back wheel, which is open, but it has this really nice frame around it, which I think will fit quite nicely into this section just here. So I did spend a little bit of time thinking, and when it came to it, I've decided to use this frame, but I could possibly mount the mudguard onto it afterwards. To begin with, I'm going to do it without the mudguard. So the first thing that I need to do, just undo this, is trim off this section and work out how I'm going to fit it to the main body. So I'm going to go flush with the body here, with that side panel. So I've done it now, I can't really go back. And what I'm looking to do, I just want to flatten these off slightly. There we go. So I need to mount the wheel in place so I get an idea of where it's going to sit. The ATV kit is a great kit. I have to say I'm not too keen on the overall aesthetic of it, which is why I want to do this conversion. But the parts work really well. So, just looking at it, that's sitting like that. What I need to do is see how far forward it puts the main body. Because what I want is I want the rear wheel of the sidecar to line up with the rear wheel of the bike. So if I position it on this line just here, on my cutting mat, and this one just here, let's just lay it down there. I don't think that's too far forward really. Let's put the gunner in place just to have a little look at what it looks like with the gun. All of this is dry fit at the moment, so I will have to stick it later on. So it's going to be that kind of position. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that works quite nicely. Now the thing I want to look at is whether or not I trim down these sides here. If this is going to attach just here like this, I don't think I need to trim down this side. I think that works quite nicely. Alternatively, I could trim it down and expose a bit more of the wheel. But I think I'm gonna leave that in place. What I will need to do though, when I attach the sidecar to the bike, I'm gonna have to trim this somehow so it sits neater in place. So let's attach this wheel to the main body. So what I'm looking to do, I'm going to stick it to this section just here, so it will butt up against that, and then we'll glue it into place. So I'm going to just need to remove that little bolt. Let's have a look. So I'm going to need to tidy up those arms, but I think I'm going to glue it in place and then trim them afterwards. So let's run the glue along those, and then let's run some glue in here. Okay. Yeah, so I think that's going to work really well. While that's drying, I'm just going to have a look at the options I've got with adding the mudguards and possibly using an alternative section to go over the top of it. I quite like the wheel being completely exposed. I'm going to leave it as is for now. I might change it later in a later video, but for now I'm going to leave it as is. Okay, so now this has dried a little bit. I think what I'm going to have to do is trim off this section just here and then attach it to the rest of the bike. I might use the other side of the ATV to actually create a section to connect it to. So, gonna have to have a think about that. So for now, I'm gonna leave it just here with this single wheel attached. What I will do, let's just pop the gunner in place. So there we have our gunner, and there is the bike section, and we can start to see already what this is going to look like. I'm really liking the aesthetic. It looks like the original Space Marine attack bike, and I'm looking forward to continuing with this project. In this video I'm going to finish off some components for the sidecar to attach it to the bike itself, and then start thinking about how I'm going to attach the weapon to the front of the sidecar. So to start with, what I want to do is add a little bit of symmetry to this. So I'm going to use this section from the other side of the ATV and clip it off and attach it in there. I'm looking to attach it just here. I'm not going to trim off these sections here because I might use them to attach the sidecar to the bike. So the first job is to stick this in place. Okay, for what I'm looking for, that's fine. Okay, so while that's drying, I don't want to start attaching it to the side of the bike. I've been thinking about what to put on the back of the bike here. And one of the parts of the ATV is this front plate, which I feel worked perfectly sticking in place there as a back of the sidecar. So I will do that right now. So all the parts that I'm using for this conversion either come from the ATV or the Primaris Outriders. So I'm trying to keep this conversion using parts that you get with those sets. Okay, I want to make sure that's central. Perfect. Okay, right, almost perfect. So that's now dried. Okay, so I'm looking at how I want to attach this to the bike itself. And the key thing I want to do is make sure that the wheels line up. So, looking at this, I can have two attachment points. One just here connecting to the edge of the exhaust, and then the base here, which should go just underneath the footplate of the bike. So first thing I need to do is trim off this top piece. And now I'm just going to hold these in position, because once I cut this one, there's not really much going back, but looking at it, I think I want to take about half of it off to start with. So that's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to clip half of this off, or close to half of it. Flying plastic today, that's gone onto a shelf somewhere. And that is, whoops, careful, that's not quite right yet. There we go. That is sitting where I want it to sit, and that is off camera, sorry, let me do that again. That is sitting where I want it to sit, and that's just about touching the exhaust. What I need to do is have a little flat plate under here that will then sit just under the exhaust. So let's have a look at the kits. So I have some perfect leftover bits from when I cut the back of this off. I think that little piece there is going to be perfect, so I'm just going to tidy it up. It's not really going to be seen, as it's going to be sitting underneath. So what I want to do first is stick it to the sidecar itself. And I keep touching this back piece so it keeps coming unglued, so I've got to make sure that that's straight. So we've now got that piece like that. So yeah, let's have a look at these, how they line up. So I think what I'm going to need to do is trim a little bit of this. I'll do it before the glue has dried. So this will allow it not to interfere with the foot of the rider. Actually, I think that's in the wrong place. I'm going to take that off before the glue's dried. So what I think I'm going to do is, okay, so I can see where this is meant to go. There's a little bit of interference with the foot just here, so I need to take, and I'm doing it off camera again, I apologise. I need to take a little bit off this. So as this is going in place, that's getting caught. So what I'm going to do is take a nice 45-degree clip off that, tidy it up with my knife to get a nice straight edge. And now when this goes in position, it looks like, yeah, okay, so yeah, all of this section is interfering with the foot, so I'm going to have to clip all of that off. So that now when this sits in, let's have a look. Yeah, it's not interfering with the foot. It's trying to come up with a connection point on something that doesn't have any connection points. So I think what I'm going to need to do, let me lay this down here. I'm going to have to put a piece of material going all the way across, sitting on this, just to give it some support. And I think to do that, unless I start stripping down plastic from the kit itself, I'm going to need to use a piece of styrene. So I have a piece of styrene just here. So what I'm going to do is cut a strip off the styrene and then work with that. So here we have a nice strip of styrene. What I think I'm going to do, I'm going to cut it to the similar thickness to this, and I'm going to stick it all the way across this section. So I need to take off probably about 5-6 mil from this. Okay, let's actually measure this. So I'm looking at about And I could have a 10mm piece going all the way across. I'll have a 10mm piece, and I can always trim it down. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to glue it across that section there. So I'm going to trim it down afterwards. When I've got the right okay. So while that's drying, let's re-glue the back on. I know I've only got one small point of contact on this, but when the glue's dry, it will be okay. What I've got to do is stop moving it while the glue is drying. There we go. Okay, let's trim this down a little bit. I know I'm not going to need... If there was anyone sitting that side of me, they'd be showered in plastic today. So, I'm looking to trim this about there. I'm not too worried about this piece because it's not going to be seen, it's going to be hidden underneath anyway. So I am going to have to trim a little bit off for the heel there. So what I'll do, I'll keep it in line with that right angle that I did. So I'm going to trim it like that, then like that, and while I've been doing that I've gone and touched the back end again. I'm going to have to be patient on this. I'm kind of rushing this, but I've got the idea and I want to stick with it. I have to put some more glue on that. Right, for now that's okay. Okay, let's just be patient and leave that. And oh, right. Let me put some spots of glue on this, let it dry, and I'll come back to it. So while the glue's been drying, I added another strip of styrene on the bottom here, just so it makes it slightly more level when it glues in place. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to apply some glue to the end of this section and on top of the styrene. And then I'm going to position those together. Right, the glue has now dried between the sidecar and the bike. There's still a little bit of movement, and what I've decided to do to fix that is to use a base so it gets mounted onto a base. It'll then match the rest of the squad that it's going to be with, as the bikes are all on bases anyway. Now I've got the option of either that round base, which it kind of almost fits on but not quite, or this larger base here. Now I think with the size that the ATV was, this base would represent it better than the round one. So I'm going to go with the oval base. It will also look very similar to the bikes in this squad. So what I'm going to want to do is put some glue on the base of each of the tyres and then place it where I want it to be. And there we have it. So, sidecar is now attached to the base. Since the last video, I've done a few things. I've filled these holes with green stuff. I've also put a styrene sheet on the underside of the sidecar to bulk it out, as well as a spare bit of the original ATV model on the back underneath, just to stop that sidecar from looking too hollow. What I'm going to be doing in this video is completing the weapon operator and attaching the weapon to this. For this I'm going to be using magnets for the weapons, but for now let's stick the gunner in place. So, I'm going to start with the multi-melter. What I'm going to be doing with these is trimming off the stalk at the bottom because it sits a little bit too far forward on the sidecar to drill a hole, and I'll be placing a magnet on the bottom as well as magnets in the handles either side. So I'm just going to trim off the spike on the bottom and tidy up that base. So now that sits nicely just there like that. So what I want to do is position the arms holding onto the weapon and glue them in place. Before I do that, however, I need to put the first magnets in place and also stick the magnets to the end of the handholds as well to attach. So let's have a look at these magnets. These are 2mm neodymium magnets. Let's just get one stalk out. So here we have a little stalk of magnets all connected together. I usually use these in aiding with the gluing and so on. So what I'm going to be doing in these holes here is gluing a magnet in place on both sides so I can then attach directly to the arms. So the first thing I'm going to do, a little bit of super glue. So we now have a magnet on this side and a magnet on that side. So the next thing I want to do is stick a magnet on the end of the hand, on that little handle. What I'm actually going to do, because of the amount of space the magnets take up, I'm going to take that whole rod off and stick a magnet in its place. Okay, so there we have two magnets on the arms, and what I need to do now to position this is glue these in place while the gun is sitting where I roughly want it to be. So to do that, just going to use some plastic glue and put that on both arms. Okay, let's hold that in place till it dries. Okay, so I've left it a little bit of time for the arms to dry, and while I was doing that, I put the magnets in the other weapon. So what I should be able to do now, I'm going to do this carefully just in case the arms haven't quite stuck. I can lift one weapon out and then drop another weapon in. So this arm isn't quite dry yet. You can see by that little bit of movement. So I'm going to leave that in place for now. I was thinking about putting a magnet on the bottom, but I don't think I'm going to worry now, because as I move this around, you can see that it stays in place. I might add a few more details to this, I'm not sure at the moment, but for now it's going to go with the rest of the bikes. So I have move that just to there. I have 3 bikes and now a ATV attack bike to create a nice 5-man squad. Really enjoyed this conversion. I'm looking forward to painting it. I'm probably going to do it in one of my homebrew chapters, so when I get round to painting it, I'll do a video on that to show you the process that I use. But for now, I hope you've enjoyed this series of videos. I'm really happy with the result of this attack bike. I always loved the attack bike as a model. It is quite old now, which is why they've retired it, but I really wanted one for my Primaris Space Marines, and I'm not too keen on the ATV when it comes down to it, but I think this is a nice go-between. Having it on the larger base fills that size profile of the ATV as well, so I think it works quite nicely. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you've enjoyed the whole process that I went through to make this kit. Hopefully I'll get around to painting it sometime soon. It's going to be for my Void Crow's Space Marine chapter. I'll put a little picture up on the screen just so you can see their colours, and I'll get round to doing that sometime soon, hopefully. If you've got any other suggestions for videos that you'd like to see on the channel, please drop it in the comments, but for now all I can say is thank you so much for tuning in. My name's John, and you've been watching War Games, Models and Other Hobbies.